One thing every NFL team has in common is they want to be able to find a franchise quarterback, or a quarterback that can lead their team to the playoffs or even Super Bowls. A lot of the time, they get those quarterbacks from the NFL draft. In the NFL draft, there are players who become good and actually become franchise quarterbacks, but there are also players who are busts and can't duplicate their college success. The 2018 quarterback draft class was one of the best in recent memory. With multiple teams needing a quarterback, there are multiple that could go in the first round. So far, we haven't seen much from the first round quarterbacks in the 2018 NFL draft, but we have seen a solid amount, and we can kind of tell if they will be good players or if they will be a career backup. Today, we're going to be going back to the 2018 NFL draft and talking about which quarterbacks have been the most successful and which can have the best careers. Of course, this could be totally wrong, and some of these players could eventually become stars in the league. Let's get right into it. Before we get into the quarterbacks taken in the first round, let's look at some things that happened in the pre-draft. NFL analysts Mike Mayock and Gil Brandt agreed that there were 5 quarterbacks in the draft that were worth a first-round pick. Something they didn't agree on, though, was who was the best quarterback in the draft, and they weren't the only ones who couldn't agree on that. Some believed the best was Josh Rosen, and others believed it was Sam Darnold. Some people thought it was Josh Allen, and some thought it was Baker Mayfield. The only one not that many people thought was the best was Lamar Jackson. Some people didn't consider Lamar Jackson to be a quarterback, as in college he was one of the top scramblers. Some people wanted him to switch to running back or even wide receiver. The Browns had the first pick in the draft, and they needed a quarterback. They hadn't really had a guy who could lead their franchise in a while, and at the draft they had the choice of any quarterback they liked. They could go with the strong-armed Josh Allen or the pretty experienced Josh Rosen. They could go with Heisman Trophy winner Baker Mayfield, or they could go with someone who could be a leader like Sam Darnold. If they really wanted to, they could even have gone with the scrambling Lamar Jackson. A few weeks before the draft, most people expected the first pick to be Sam Darnold or Josh Allen, with some even thinking it could be Josh Rosen. A few days before, and on the day of the draft though, there were lots of rumors about Baker Mayfield going first overall to the Browns, and that brings us to the first pick in the draft. With the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns decided on going with Baker Mayfield. Since he joined Oklahoma, Mayfield was great in college. He had a total of 119 passing touchdowns to only 21 interceptions. The Cleveland Browns believed he would be the one that could bring them back to their glory days. In the past 2 seasons, the Browns had only won 1 game and they had lost 31. The season before, they became the second ever team to go 0-16. They needed a quarterback, but they also needed help on the whole team, and they had gotten some help that offseason. They had made some big trades where they got players like Jarvis Landry, Demarius Randall, and Tyrod Taylor, who would be their starting quarterback for Week 1 even though they drafted Mayfield. The Browns tied with the Steelers in Week 1 and then lost by 3 points to the Saints in Week 2. They didn't have that bad of a start to the season, but they still hadn't won a game in over a year. In Week 3, they played on Thursday night against the New York Jets. Tyrod Taylor started the game, but after a less than ideal start, Baker Mayfield came on for the first time in his NFL career. He didn't throw any touchdowns, but he helped his team come back from 14 points down and give them their first win in 635 days. He was named the starter for the next week and the rest of the season. He had really good numbers as a rookie, including 27 touchdown passes, which was a record for rookies. He also threw 3,725 yards and 14 interceptions and led the Browns to a 7-8-1 record. The Browns had a good 2018 offseason, but their 2019 one was even better. They signed a talented running back in Kareem Hunt, and they were able to trade for Olivier Vernon. They were also able to trade for one of the top receivers in the NFL, in Odell Beckham Jr., to reunite him with his college teammate Jarvis Landry. They signed some other players to help them out, and in the second round of the NFL Draft, they took LSU cornerback Greedy Williams. Most people believe they won the offseason, and with the pieces they already had, like young cornerback Denzel Ward and young running back Nick Chubb, plus many others, the Browns were one of the preseason candidates for the Super Bowl only 2 years after they went 0-16. The season didn't come off to a good start, though. They lost 43-13 against the Titans, and Mayfield didn't have the best of games. That game was a sign for how the rest of the season would go, as they ended with a record of 6-10. Mayfield didn't improve in his second season, and his numbers were actually worse. He got better on yards, throwing 3,827, but only threw 22 touchdowns and also threw 21 interceptions, which was second most in the NFL. This offseason, the Browns paid Case Keenum a pretty big amount of money to be backup, which leaves some people wondering if Mayfield might get benched next season. I think Mayfield will be the starter, and so far in his career, he has shown glimpses of success, but he has also shown some things you don't want to see from a franchise quarterback. Mayfield has had 3 coaches, though, which could be a part of his mixed success in the NFL so far. Mayfield could have a good future, but at this point in time, I'm not sure if he was the best pick for the Browns at number 1 overall. With the 3rd pick in the draft, the New York Jets took Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was a very solid quarterback for USC in college, and even though he was one of the younger quarterbacks in the draft, he was said to be one of the most NFL ready. He ended up being the only first-round quarterback in the draft that started in Week 1. The game was against the Detroit Lions, and he didn't have a very promising start to his career, as his first throw was a pick 6. He bounced back after that throw, throwing nearly 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 48-17 win. That was a rare win for the Jets, though, as they only won 4 games the whole season. Darnold missed 3 games due to injury, but the games he played, he only threw 17 touchdowns and 2,865 passing yards. He also threw 15 interceptions. It wasn't the best first season for Darnold, but the Jets made some good off-season moves, like bringing in C.J. Mosley and Le'Veon Bell, and many others. They were expected to improve in 2019, and they did, winning 7 games, 6 of them coming in the second half of the season. Darnold missed a few games at the start of the year, but he still improved in 2019, throwing 3,024 yards and 19 touchdowns to only 13 picks. Sam Darnold hasn't shown anything great in his career, but I think at least a part of it is the poor coaching he needs to deal with. Adam Gase is one of the worst coaches in the NFL, and the receiving corps isn't great either. If he was on a better team, I think Darnold could be a really good quarterback, and who knows, maybe he can even be great for the Jets. He's still only 22 years old and has a long way to go in his career, but I'm not sure if he can get to the point he wants to if he stays with the Jets. He hasn't been able to do as well as he did in college, but he has the potential, and one day, maybe he could be a very good quarterback in the National Football League. With the 7th pick in the draft, the Buffalo Bills selected Josh Allen, the quarterback from Wyoming. After the Bills traded Tyrod Taylor to the Browns, they needed a franchise quarterback, since the guy they had, Nathan Peterman, hadn't proved himself to be a talented player so far in his career. Allen was one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. He had unreal arm talent and could scramble pretty well. He hadn't played for the biggest college, but he had shown he could be a really good player. In his NFL debut in Week 2 of the 2018 season, Allen didn't play great, but a week later he helped his team beat the then undefeated Minnesota Vikings. He stayed the starter for most of the season, but his numbers were not what you would want from a top 10 NFL draft pick. He threw just over 2,000 yards in 11 starts, and he added only 10 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. He was good as a rusher, though, as he had 631 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. The Bills finished with a 6-10 record, which was 3rd in the AFC East. The next season, though, Allen improved. He threw over 3,000 yards and 20 touchdown passes to only 9 interceptions. He also had a good season on the ground again, rushing for over 500 yards and 9 touchdowns. He even helped the Bills make it to the playoffs as a wildcard team. In the wildcard round, he lost in overtime to the Texans, but there still looks to be a good future for him with the Bills. He is the first quarterback taken so far that has played in the playoffs, and now with a better receiving target to throw to in Stephon Diggs, he could be a really good NFL quarterback. Allen has a really high ceiling, he just hasn't reached it yet. He isn't a great quarterback in the NFL yet, but he definitely has the potential to be an elite one. Now with Tom Brady's reign over in New England, the NFC East is wide open, and the Bills could be the top of it for years to come. With the 10th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals traded up from spot number 15 to draft Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen is the only quarterback that was taken in the first round that hasn't worked out that well so far in his career, but I don't really think it was his fault. He was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, who had a poor offensive line, less than stellar receiving targets for Rosen, and a first-year head coach in Steve Wilks. He didn't put up the best numbers in 2018 and could only help the Cardinals to win 3 games, which was the worst in the NFL. The Cardinals had the first pick in the draft, and instead of bolstering their defense or giving more pieces to help Rosen out, they decided to draft his replacement only 1 year after they had picked him. The Cardinals had just fired Steve Wilks after only a season, and the coach they had brought in was Cliff Kingsbury. As a college football coach, Kingsbury had run the air raid offense, and so with the first pick, he took quarterback Kyler Murray, who he thought would work better with the offense than Rosen would. A day after they took Murray, the Cardinals traded Rosen to the Dolphins for some more draft capital. Rosen was excited for his second chance with the Dolphins, but soon found out it would be similar to the Cardinals. He had a first-year head coach, the NFL's worst offensive line, and not great receiving targets. Rosen barely played in 2019 due to him throwing only over 500 passing yards and 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions in the short amount of time he played early in the season. With the Dolphins re-signing Ryan Fitzpatrick, and with them taking Tua Tagovailoa with the 5th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, it looks like Rosen might be forced to find another home in only his 3rd NFL season. I think if Rosen can be able to sit behind a veteran quarterback, and if he can have better players to throw to, and a decent offensive line, Rosen can become a very good quarterback. I really think he can be a good player. He's just been unlucky with the teams he's played for. With the change of scenery, I think we could see Josh Rosen be the player we saw when he was at UCLA. 21 picks came and went by, and no more quarterbacks were taken. The Philadelphia Eagles had the 32nd pick in the draft, but the Baltimore Ravens traded back into the first round, and with the final pick of the first round, they selected Lamar Jackson. Like I said earlier, some people didn't believe Lamar Jackson could be a quarterback, but he stayed at the position he had played in college. In college, Lamar had been very good, and he even won a Heisman Trophy in 2017, but still, people didn't believe he would be able to be a quarterback in the NFL. After Joe Flacco went down with an injury, Jackson was the starter for the final 6 games. The team played well, and he was able to help them win the division and go to the playoffs. He had a poor playoff game, though, and the Ravens lost the game. In the offseason, the Ravens traded Joe Flacco to the Broncos, and Lamar Jackson was set to be the full-time starter. After a 2-2 start to the season, the Ravens won 12 straight games and had the best record in the NFL at 14-2. Lamar Jackson was a huge part of that, as he set the record for most rushing yards in a single season by a quarterback ever, and he led the NFL in passing touchdowns with 36. He also rushed for 7 touchdowns. The Ravens had a first-round bye and were set to face the 6th-seed Titans in the divisional round. The Ravens were heavy favorites, but ended up losing the game. Jackson played well, but the rest of the team just didn't show up. The Ravens couldn't do what they had been doing all season long in the regular season, and for the 2nd year in a row, Lamar Jackson was one and done in the playoffs. The day before the Super Bowl, though, Lamar Jackson won the MVP trophy, and he became one of the few players in NFL history to win it unanimously. Like I said earlier in the video, Lamar Jackson was one of the only 5 first-round talents that many people didn't believe in, but John Harbaugh and the rest of the Ravens coaching staff were able to use his playing style and turn him into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's definitely been the most successful of the quarterbacks in the 2018 NFL draft class, and he's only played 1 year as a starter. He'll probably improve, and one of the only doubts about him is if he can stay healthy or if he will get injured and turn into the next Robert Griffin III. If he can stay healthy, though, I think he can stay as one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. That's going to be about it for this video. This video is different from what I normally do, but if you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like. Also, while you're doing that, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.